At first glance, they look like any other family enjoying a glorious winter's day on Sydney's foreshore. But Chen Yonglin, his wife Jin Ping, and their 6-year-old daughter Fang Rong are fugitives, caught up in our biggest spy scandal in decades. This is a family under enormous pressure.
Do you feel as though you've been abandoned?
I feel very frustrated, upset and scared.
Are you frightened?
Yes.
And your daughter? Do you think she understands what's happening?
I believe she started to understand something. She can sense it. We are in a difficult situation.
Chen Yonglin was a senior diplomat at the Chinese consulate in Sydney when on May 26 he made the extraordinary decision to defect. This week he approached 60 Minutes to tell his story.
It is time for me to stand up and speak out of my fear about the persecution by the government, and declare that I'm only one of a huge number of people under the control of the ruling party.
Officially, he was a diplomat, but Chen's job involved gathering political information and monitoring Australian Chinese, particularly members of Falun Gong, a spiritual group outlawed by Beijing.
Monitor what they did, everything.
So you would go along to
yes,
their
and they would like me to report back to China for their information, so that they take some strategy or measures against this group.
And you were comfortable doing that job?
Actually, against my consciousness, actually.
But for 4 years, that's what you had to do?
Yes, and that's I feel so miserable. I can't tolerate it anymore.
Eventually, after a crisis of conscience, Chen decided he had to leave.
Did your colleagues know that you were going to do this?
I don't think so.
So you understood that walking away from your job was a very grave thing to do, very dangerous thing to do.
Yes. It's a very serious choice.
Beijing and Canberra, both of them, the systems need this like a hole in the head. No one prays for this.
Why not?
Well, because it's an administrative political nightmare for both sides, and everybody's trying to get on with China, and China enjoys everybody trying to get on with it.
Warren Reid is a former spy with the Australian Secret Intelligence Service. He says Chen's defection should have been a huge coup for Australia.
Oh, very significant from a major country like China. It doesn't only have enormous implications for our political and economic relationship with China, but to have a Chinese diplomat walk in and wish to defect in this way is a very, very significant act.
Chen wasn't just any defector. He had highly sensitive information that could expose China's spying activities in Australia. He says all manner of clandestine activities are happening here, among them political kidnappings and a vast network of spies.
A 1,000 spies here in Australia.
According to my knowledge, there are about 1,000 agents and informers in Australia.
You also made allegations of kidnappings, people being kidnapped and being taken back to China. Is that correct?
I don't want to repeat what I've said.
You're maintaining that that allegation is true.
I just don't want to talk about it anymore, right at this stage.
So you have told no lies to avoid going back to China?
All my words can be verified in some way.
If Chen's claims are true, then the federal government's response to them is astounding. Rather than embrace Chen as someone who could give them invaluable intelligence, they actually dobbed him in to the Chinese government, knowing full well he could be sent back to China.
What would happen to you if you go back to China? What would be the punishment?
The punishment will be very serious.
Prison?
I should be punished to at least 5 to 10 years if disclose some information, secret information. Even will be more serious punishment will be waiting for me.
So you could serve 10, 15 years in prison for treason, or even worse.
Even worse, yes.
What is worse?
That's death penalty. Yes.
I don't want to participate in this persecution anymore.
By midweek, Australia's spying crisis had deepened with the defection of a second Chinese security officer, Hao Fengjun. In Melbourne, Hao, with his back to the camera to protect his identity, spoke out about his country's secret force, which he says is operating here in Australia. Hao, a police intelligence analyst, said 4 months ago he gave ASIO top-secret documents detailing the activities of the secret force, documents that back up Chen's allegations. But to date, not one government agency has contacted him.
Do you believe the Australian government wishes that Mr. Chen and Mr. Hao had never appeared?
Oh, I think the government wishes that so desperately they'd pray not only to a Christian god, but any other pantheon of gods that happen to be around. They would want nothing more than to be able to rewind the tape and totally airbrush all of this off.
It was an ugly scene with
Spy scandals and defections are nothing new on Australian soil. Our most famous was undoubtedly the Petrov affair.
Mrs. Petrov was bundled inside the plane for the flight to Darwin.
At the height of the Cold War, Soviet intelligence agents Vladimir Petrov and his wife Evdokia defected. Prime Minister Robert Menzies allowed them to stay. Now John Howard is being asked to do the same thing 50 years on.
She decided to stay in Australia.
Really, it's a very different world. There's no comparison, no.
Well, China is not the enemy.
No.
Russia was the enemy.
No, Russia was. Exactly.
Is that the difference?
That's one huge difference.
To understand Chen's motivation, you need to understand his personal history. Back in the 70s, during China's infamous Cultural Revolution, Chen says his father was tortured to death for being a dissident, one of the millions to die under Chairman Mao's regime.
So they kidnapped him on his way back home from the town and jailed him and beat him and tortured him. And 2 weeks later, he died of torturing. It has been a deep shadow in my heart, and I have been thinking of this for a very long time.
But it was in Australia, while he was monitoring the activities of Falun Gong, that Chen began to seriously question the communist regime.
That's why I feel guilty, you know. These people are not like the government said. It's.
Did you go back to the government and tell them that these people are good people?
Yeah, I talked to my colleagues, even the Consul General. Consul General, we have a private talk. Consul General agree with me, but we still have to follow the instruction from the central government.
When Chen and his family went into hiding more than 2 weeks ago, they were completely alone. In desperation, he sought out the very people he'd been spying on, the Falun Gong. He then went public, in part to protect himself.
They have successfully in kidnapping people in Australia back to China. I want to ask if the Australian government is aware of such case.
Do you believe him when he says that there had even been a kidnapping of a student from a Sydney school to coerce his father back to China? Do you believe that?
At face value, yes, I do.
Do you believe there is a network of some 1,000 spies or informers here on Australian soil?
Or informers, yes. I would imagine there could be 15, 20, maybe 30 fully fledged, highly trained Chinese intelligence operatives working on our soil. But if you look at the stables of agents and informers and whatnot, even Australian traitors, that those operatives would have working for them, and added all that up, you could easily get to 1,000.
Do you believe Mr. Chen and Mr. Hao when they say that if they are returned to China, they would be in grave danger?
Oh, they'd definitely be in danger. They would not be treated kindly. Their friends and relatives may well suffer. Grave danger, hard to know how you would define grave, but they would not be treated kind.
If I say I'm busy, I'm sorry, can't come, they say, oh, it's okay, busy with your spy network.
Earlier this week, Madame Fu, China's ambassador to Australia, was making light of what is clearly a damaging situation.
I don't see there's any reason China will punish him, or there are laws which would guarantee his freedom.
Madame Fu says you have nothing to fear.
Oh, they are trying to woo me back and then punish me.
So you don't believe Madame
I don't
Fu?
believe that.
Chen Yonglin says he's been motivated by his conscience, but it's meant he's had to betray his country. I presume you do love your country.
Yeah, I love my country. It's very hard for me to decide to walk out of the consulate, but from conscience I have to.
You love your country, but you hate the politics.
I love the country, but hate what did the Communist Party to us, to my family, and to the Chinese society.
In the past 4 years, the Chens have settled comfortably into Australia. Little Fang Rong even knows the anthem.
In joyful strings then let us sing against the striving fair.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
Sorry.
fantastic.
The other day when we still on the run, she sang more freely, but I just can't help to have my tears running down, actually.
But this family's future is still very much in doubt, as the Australian government considers whether to grant them a protection visa. If that fails, they'll have to return to China, and an uncertain fate.
I hope the Australian government and the people will support my action, and through support me, that's support the Chinese people.